Great.
Hello, everyone. Here, this is Julia Lopez here, your communication architect and leading in high. And today is another episode of our Speak Up and Lead Talks, the place to be for sexy and savvy conversation. And today I have a special guest. Well, this man has something very interesting, intriguing to share with us. He is Justin, and Justin is, I'm going to read this because I have to get this right. Just bear with me a second. Justin is behavior and integrative medicine expert. And he's also a high performance facilitator and trainer. And he's founder of the LifePrint System. And that is exactly what I want Justin to share with us today, what the LifePrint System is about. Hello, Justin from South Africa. How are you?
Hi, Julia. Thank you very much for having me I love that sexy and savvy communication and conversation. That's certainly a big kick for me. So thank you very much. Much appreciative and a lot of gratitude to you for having me on your platform and on your show today.
Thank you, Justin. So Justin, explain to us what is the LifePrint System is about and what brought you to create this.
For me, it's always been this LifePrint's about a personalized fulfillment factor. And I truly believe that we all have and deserve to live a life of true fulfillment. And here's the thing is this fulfillment factor just seems to be so elusive for a lot of people. We always seem to be chasing this, what is it to live a fulfilled life? And so LifePrint was really born out of my own pain and suffering, really. I basically almost died trying to live up to a society's expectation or invisible standard or cultural inheritance, call it what you will, that was a process of external conditioning, of trying to live up to some social norm. And it was in that pain and that suffering that I really started to dive deep into human behavior and integrative medicine. And I've been on this personal journey ever since and have a real big passion for helping people and making an impact in this world and making sure that this doesn't really happen to anybody else. So LifePrint was really born out of my own pain and suffering. I nearly basically died trying to live up or fit the beautiful prepared little boxes that society likes to have us believe that we should live up to. And so there's a long process and a long story in terms of this. And I know our time is short together, so I really want to get to the meat of it. I truly believe that every single person deserves to live a life of true fulfillment. And this true fulfillment and this fulfillment factor that we're always chasing seems to be very elusive. And I truly believe that fulfillment for everyone is different. And yet the way that we are brought up with each stage of our development is a conditioning that does not suit the mold for everybody. And so in this process, people are not authentic or true to themselves, and they end up trying to fit into the social conditionings or the invisible standards that society has us believe that we have to be in order to be successful. So there's a long process that kind of goes with that, but that's really what LifePrint is all about, is helping people to discover who they truly are and embrace all aspects of themselves, both their proactive patterns of behavior as well as their reactive patterns of behavior. And that way really empowering them to know exactly who they truly are. Because I think we've got a big problem at the moment and a big challenge that we're facing as a society and as a human culture, is that we've got more people now suffering from depression, suffering from anxiety, with very low self-worth and are finding it very challenging. And, like I said, my personal story with this is I nearly died trying to fit into one of these boxes because I wasn't really being true to myself. And I would never, ever fit into the mold of what the conditioning was at the time. And so my big mission is really to help people find what their true personalized fulfillment factor is by looking at a needs-based system that's really at the core of it understands what it is that you really need. Because I believe that you don't always get what you want, but you almost always certainly get what you need. And it's just in how we get what we need that we really fight with ourselves with. So that's basically the background of LifePrint.
Yeah, which I will summarize in a way from what I understand is that we are, as we say, you have different personalities, and we have, of course, different personality patterns and traits and strengths and not so much strengths. Let's use positive words. And it's important that we are aware of that and then develop that and focus on building up on our strengths instead of just focusing too much on our weaknesses. And it's interesting what you say, because for me, what I do, working with, I don't know which camera I have to look. I look here, I look there, doesn't matter. I'm gonna look at this camera now. In what I do with my ladies, helping them to speak up. One thing I've learned throughout my work is the lack of awareness that people have about themselves and how they are perceived by others. And yes, sometimes they have a completely different perception of themselves. Yes. And this doesn't help them because, and this might be what is really hindering them to get their message across, because they think they are being perceived in one way and they are not perceived in that way. They're perceived in a different way. And I think this falls into what you're doing. We come from different angles, and yes, on the sense that we need to know which kind of personality am I, where do I fit in, and what is good for me, what is not good for me. If I don't know, I just go with the flow. And as you said, I had almost to die to find my path. And yes, it's good that you almost died earlier, because yes, if you don't die now, earlier die, you have the opportunity to change, because absolutely, many people just go along dead without noticing.
Correct.
Is that, and yes, and then I was looking here in your webpage, very interesting. I even did my trial, so I have to get the feedback from you, what kind of personality I have. And you have some 3 keywords there: evaluate, enhance, and evolve. Can you just give us a little bit information on that?
Certainly, Tulia. So, for me, it's so important. I don't know how many people out there buy cars without driving them first, or at least taking them out for a test drive and having a look at it and doing the research. I truly believe that we are exactly the same. And so you're never going to really get to where you're going if you don't actually evaluate what your own potential is first. And so you can basically triple down on what you're really good at, and then, look at the faults and hand those over to somebody else, because we all suck at something, let's be honest. And we're always really good at other things. And it's, it's important for us to be able to evaluate our own behavior patterns, our own personality patterns, so that we know and we are empowered and we're more self-aware of when the reactivity is starting to step in, and we can better disrupt and interrupt it. I'm a big believer in self-disruption. I think it's absolutely crucial for us to have, the big things I'm teaching at the moment is really perspective and awareness. And the thing is, we're conditioned from the moment we are born. We're told what is good, what is bad, what you can do, what you can't do, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And that conditioning interrupts our natural states. And so we get led to believe that depression isn't normal, anxiety isn't normal, anger is not normal, when actually, in actual fact, they really are. And it's just different for each one of us. And the moment we actually start accepting those sides of our behavior, then we are able to better enhance ourselves and evolve to a new potential within our lives. And so that's really what it's all about, is self-disruption, and understanding who you truly are and not what you've been conditioned to be. Yeah. And so I think that's the biggest challenge we face, is that a lot of us have been conditioned into being people to please society, to please the model of our cultural inheritances or social expectations. And what I'm saying is, stop measuring outside of yourself. Stop looking, if only I was like this, or if only I was like him, or if only I was like her, or if only I could have this or have that. And it's nothing about anything outside of yourself. And the more you focus outside of yourself, the more you're missing all of the goodness that is actually sitting on the inside. And Absolutely. So the first thing for me is evaluate, is really disrupt and evaluate what you are and what your potential is.
Yeah, but there's one thing that we have to have in mind, that we are social animals. And as social animals, our first major basic instinct is survival. And this is why we get this information from our parents, from our surroundings in school, when we are in the process of growing, because we need to have some references of what works and what doesn't work in certain behaviors that we need to learn to become part of this pack, this social pack that we belong to, culturally, geographically, etc. The key is that we grow up becoming adults without questioning that. And that has come to the awareness that you're talking about. That's normal. It's like, I love one speech from J.K. Rowling, the lady who wrote Harry Potter. And there's one in her speech said, there is also a expiring date to stop blaming the parents.
Well, that's exactly it. So that's exactly it. Because what's going to happen? You're going to blame your parents, and then then your parents are going to blame their parents, and their parents are going to blame their parents, and their parents, and so it can go on for absolute ever. So
and nobody takes action.
Interrupts the pattern and say, right, I'm going to take accountability for my life. This is my life. Everybody's got problems. Everybody's got complaints. Nobody cares because they've got their own stuff. So what do I need to get on with now in terms of what my potential is, what it is that I'm really passionate about, and having a look at what the fundamental needs for that personality pattern in order to feel fulfilled. Because I truly believe that we all, regardless of culture and of cultural ethnicity, regardless of our gender, regardless of our geographical location, regardless of pretty much any social class we were born into, every single one of us have the same fundamental human needs that we need. It's just that for the most part, some of us have higher driving values and needs than others. And when we can figure those out, all the others kind of fall into place. And then life actually starts to become very fulfilling, because we actually are becoming an energetic generator instead of an energetic reactor to the environment. And so what I'm trying to do is get people to change the polarity, really own who they are in terms of, this is my full potential, both proactive and both reactive, because I can make a conscious choice to choose a reactive behavior of mine, but use it in a very proactive manner. But I don't go home.
I love that. Repeat that. I love that. I can make a conscious choice to be reactive, but do it in a proactive way. Wow, give me 5. That's
correct.
Excellent. Yeah.
Exactly. But when I do it, it's not done from an emotional, reactive place. So it's not a trigger where it then cascades and I go home and I push my wife down the stairs, I lock the kids in their room and then kick the dog. You know, so it's basically to move an environmental situation that, let's be honest, we do face a lot of conflict in our lives. And perhaps sometimes that conflict needs a different behavioral pattern, but used in a very conscious way, but it doesn't ruin the rest of your day. It moves it forward, and it basically gets you to evolve. I mean, here's an example for you. We're part of nature. And so if a volcano is just sitting there all nice and it's just non-reactive and it's just having a nice day like everybody else, nobody says anything. And then when it explodes and it shoots lava and ash into the air and maybe kills a couple of thousand people, we don't go to the volcano and say, "Oh, bad volcano, how evil of you, that is terrible, how dare you do this." It's part of nature, and it's part of basically the cycle of a natural pathway in terms of energetically proactive or reactive. And I truly believe we're the same. And we just give ourselves too much of a hard time, and we need to put the stick down and stop beating ourselves up and use the stick to walk with. Put the mountains down and climb them. Don't carry them. And too many people are getting caught up in this hole and not moving forward quick enough because they think there's something wrong with them. And I just want people to know that there's nothing wrong with them. They're not broken. They're not damaged. And everybody deserves a life full of pure potential, joy, and happiness. And that's really at my core of what LifePrint is really all about.
Yes, and what you mentioned, that for me is very important. And for example, it's about recognizing also what is happening, because in many cases people tend to deny, this is a bad feeling, this is a bad situation, this makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm just not going to think about it, and I'm going to try to move on. And it doesn't happen that way. You have to own that moment and really do something about it, then move on. It's only when you recognize that there is an issue there, you might not be able to deal with it in that very moment, but then it exists, you find your tools to move on. But then you have in your moment, as I say, when you have your favorite drink with you and you sit down and you have those conversations with yourself that I hope you do. Yes. I know you do, but I'm talking to the people out there. And then you go back to that moment and say to yourself, what happened there? Because this will happen again. But once you start this conversation, next time it happens, you immediately recognize it, and then you already have developed some tools to overcome until you really fully overcome them, and they will never happen again. Right? Exactly.
So what's at the real principle of this whole thing is really helping people to understand the mechanism. So the mechanism of this whole reality that we live in. So what is the mechanism of how their brain and their body and their behavior and their potential, what is the mechanism of how that works? And so behind the scenes, we know what we've come to know, as I'm sure you realize yourself, is that we don't live in a punishing or rewarding universe. You know good people that bad things happen to. And I'm sure you know some pretty not so nice people that good things always happen to. And so we don't really live in a punishing or a rewarding universe or reality. However, we do live in a reflective reality. And that's kind of our environment reflects back to us the belief systems that we hold to be true of ourselves as well as of others. And so this all comes from that conditioning process where we have these ideas or belief systems that aren't really true, yet they are true for who we are. And I find that's a lot of the difficulty in what people have in living a life of true fulfillment for what it means for them, and not what it means for the conditioning of the society.
Yeah, but that is the big challenge, isn't it? To define what you want, what exactly is good for me. Yeah,
Exactly.
because these conditioning patterns are so built in many people that it's very difficult for them to see beyond that or outside that.
Exactly.
I always say
Exactly.
that the fact of have been living in different countries in my past almost 30 years that I left Brazil,
Yes.
is a real privilege.
Yes.
Why? Not only because you know different countries, different cultures, but is a real privilege on your own self-development, because then you are really forced to face different realities, different
Absolutely.
cultures, and you
Yes.
have to find a way within. And you're going to learn to adapt to certain things, and you're going to learn to raise beyond certain adversities. And that
Exactly.
allows you to really have this conversation with yourself, trying to find the best way to keep going, which when you are always in the same environment, that you never moved, you evolve, but you have a picture of yourself. You haven't put yourself in the situations that you have really to look at the mirror and figure out who is this person right now.
So that's the whole evaluate story within the LifePrint, is really evaluating the fundamental needs that are necessary for fulfillment. When those needs are being fulfilled from a proactive or encouraging set of behavior, then you can really start to enhance and develop the behavior set that leads you into evolving onto a whole different level and potential. Because now you know exactly who you are, what you're capable of achieving, and exactly when to interrupt or disrupt your behavior when those reactive patterns start coming around. And therefore allowing yourself to be self-empowered and being an energetic generator and not an environmental reactor. So I'm not reacting to the environment all the time. I'm actually generating the energy and really understanding the pure potential and power that you have as a human being. And I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because I think people are just conditioned in a way that they don't understand what it is that really drives them.
And they are not aware of their own power.
Correct.
They haven't tapped into their own strength and knowing I know even more with women, and working with women as I do is even more difficult for them to believe than allow themselves to aim for something bigger.
Yes.
And even allow themselves to have that voice out there that they believe that voice doesn't matter, that their voice doesn't matter. So it's really like people understanding that they are here for a purpose. We are not here on holidays. We are here to do something.
Absolutely.
And that the sooner we get we tap into our strengths, many amazing things unfold. And one thing you said when you know exactly what you are, and I think exactly is a little bit too strong word, because I rather believe that we have a very good idea of who this person is at that right moment in that time, moment in time, because we evolve and we change. Although there are certain patterns in our behavior, personality, they always remain the same, but we should be able to go also a little bit with moving around.
And so that's the evolution side of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's the evolution side of it, because throughout your life, you're going through these different life cycles. And those life cycles is really where I'm at in terms of my development as a human being. Where am I on my path in terms of, it's very different when you were a teenager or when you were in your bachelor years, or when you were first building your family or your business into, every different life cycle has a different, almost like a different flavor to it. Yeah. And so really understanding and knowing where you are at within each level of your development gives you such a great advantage over anything else, because you know exactly what it is that you can be using that energy for very proactively.
Yes,
So yeah.
and we should become observers of our own selves, observers of others and our own selves. And I say in my trainings for the non-verbal communication, which I'm fascinated about it, because from my experience, from what I see, that many people say something and their body says something else. And I would say, in case of imbalance, misalignment, trust the body.
Correct.
And people are giving information about themselves all the time without knowing. And we come back to this awareness, and is everything it falls into you really taking the opportunity and the commitment to learn who you really are and embrace this person and help this person to move forward, and now and then reassess, now and then have this conversation with oneself and saying, okay, how am I doing this in this context that I am right now? Am I happy? Is that exactly what I want to do? Or maybe I should switch here, switch there, change a little bit here, change a little bit there, and keep going.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot in high performance. High performers typically will understand that the environment is really key to their success. And, we look at unconscious habits very often. And so these unconscious habits that we find ourselves continually doing, and high performers really turn that around and they start developing conscious habits. So really activating the environment consciously to do the habitual things that put them in a state of real energy-rich performance. And that's really something that it doesn't just happen. People, I believe that people are really just impatient at the moment. And it's their impatience that's really killing them. Because they think they're in a sprint, and actually this is a marathon. And they just need to basically take the time, integrate new processes, because if you know something and you're not applying it, you might as well not know it. And so high performers really understand that the activation of conscious habit making within the environment really sets them up for success. It's not an overnight thing. They literally are able to will in the experience of being in this energy-rich state. And so that's why it's very important to understand what is the mechanism. How does this mechanism work? It's the same as a car. If you want to get the best out of the performance of a car, study the parts and pieces of a car in terms of how to really evolve that car to how it can perform in its best state. And that happens through the enhancements of each of those parts. But if you don't know how the machine works, and if you don't know how this whole thing comes about, then you're really at a disadvantage. And I truly believe this should really be taught even at the school level, because the younger we can get to children and to get them to understand and make the decisions and start setting their own boundaries and start developing a very healthy self-worth, I think it's going to stand them in the best of positions for whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, it doesn't really matter. But for me, the real quality and the real place that this really gets impacted is with the kids, with the parents, and really with people that are already making an impact in the world. When they get this, this just basically ignites it and accelerates it to another whole level.
Yes, and I think we have to wrap up, but I would say we should listen to the kids.
Yes.
They know who they are.
Yes.
And the thing is, the whole system around them, it doesn't comply to support them to be themselves. And then that's the conversation is when you become a teenager, I think there is a crucial time, because then is when you really want to comply. You feel you have to belong to something.
Correct.
Yes. And
Correct.
the whole
so
system
that's the emotional developmental stage that we look at. But what else do we have on that speak thing that we must cover quickly before we wrap up?
The only thing I need from you right now is that I want from you to give us some key points. What should you advise people in general? And
Absolutely.
they should be aware of to get started on this journey to really elevate themselves?
Awesome. So let's give you 6 keys here right now, very, very quickly. So there's 2 phases to this. Phase 1 is 3 keys. Phase 2 is 3 keys. Phase 1, firstly, you've got to learn to tolerate yourself. And that means tolerate all aspects of yourself. Tolerate all your choices and your decisions. Tolerate your process and tolerate your overreactions. Only then will tolerance move into respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your choices, respect for your process, and also respect for your overreactivity. You have to accept and respect that side of yourself, because only then, once you have tolerance and respect, will you really only truly move into loving yourself and loving who you are. And so that's step number 1, and it always starts with self. So you've got to learn to be selfish, because in your selfishness, you will learn to be more selfless. And so that moves into stage 2, where it spills over into the environment. And because there's so much love of yourself, you can then start to have grace, and grace for somebody else's choices and their process and their overreactions, because you know that they're just doing the best that they can do with the toolbox that they've come into this world bearing. And then once you grace, that moves into honoring somebody else for their journey, their process, their choices, their overreactions. And then really love turns into something that's more eternal, because we're all in this together. We're all part of the same growth cycle. We're all human beings. And I truly believe, just be kind. Just be a good person. Just show kindness. Just everybody's doing the best that they can with what they've got. And, and just be a good person and help people and just be kind at the end of the day. I think that's the most important thing. And so those are those key points: tolerance, respect, love, grace, honor, and eternal love for all of us, really. And so that's what I can leave you with.
Thank you so much, Justin.
It's a pleasure, Julia. Thank you.
We appreciate all you said, and they're very good learnings that you gave to us today. And I know you're coming from South Africa to Zurich this week.
Thank you.
So you'll be here at Zurich this weekend. I will give the link for people to sign up for your presentation. And ladies, don't miss this opportunity to be with the loving and caring and charismatic Justin. And this is all for me right now. And catch you again next time in Speak Up and Lead Talks, the place for sexy and savvy conversations.
Love it. Thank you, Julia. Have a beautiful day.
You too.